Welcome to round 6 of the FIDE World Cup being played in Baku, and today we're going to be in how the game was won. We're going to be looking at the round 6 game between Anish, Giri and Svidler. And this game was played on the 27th of September 2015. And without further ado, let's have a look at how the opening played itself out. And we've got e4, e5, knight, f3, knight f6, bishop e5, a6, which means that we've got the Spanish, the Rey Lopez, and with the Berlin Wall gaining in popularity, it's refreshing to see the main line of the Rey Lopez making a resurgence. Bishop a4, knight f6, castles, bishop e7, rook e1, b5, bishop e3, black castles, and here Giri shows that he doesn't fear the marshal by tempting Svidler. But Svidler, staying true to his style of playing solid chess, doesn't opt to go for the marshal. He plays d6. Interestingly enough, d5 is obviously the other option, and in the 28 games that Svidler has reached this position in his career, he's played d5 on 12 of those games. Here we go with Giri playing h3, and Svidler now thinks for about 3 minutes before playing bishop b7, followed by d4, rook e8, knight b to d2, and he takes d4. Continuing with c takes d4, knight d7, knight f1, knight f5, bishop c2, bishop f6. And this is the reason why the bishop is not originally put onto f8. Because it would be far more active on the f6 square. While both of Svidler's opponents previously in this type of line played bishop f4 in this position, Giri improvised by playing rook to b1, and this move has been played in 5 games before, and the speed with which Giri is playing shows that he has prepared very thoroughly as far as this line is concerned. We continue with c5, d5, knight c4, b3, knight c to e5, knight on 3 to h2. And this move makes complete sense because black has less space, and because he's got less space, exchanges are to be avoided. The knight on e5 might not have such a good square to go to after white plays f4, for instance. So we continue with knight to g6, knight g3, bishop c8. The bishop was doing absolutely nothing on b7, hence it's being rerouted to a better diagonal. At this point, Svidler is already has already used up more than half his allotted time, while Giri seems like he was still within his home preparation by blitzing with the moves almost as fast as Svidler was playing his. Rook f1 and knight b6 for black, followed by knight g4, which is the first real think of the game that Giri had so far. Bishop takes g4, h takes g4. For instance, queen takes g4 is not in the spirit of the position because you've got knight e5, queen e2, g6. So h takes g4 was played, followed by h6, knight f5, knight e7, knight e3. Once again, avoiding the exchanges makes complete sense as white has much more space in the board. And by And because white has more space, if black allows the exchanges, it just allows wider routes for the white pieces to come marauding into the black position. For instance, here black could have played c4 to be able to create some counterplay, but after b takes c4, b takes a4, f4, white is clearly better in this position. So instead of doing that, black played b4, which then followed with g3, a5, king g2, a4, and b takes a4. I don't really like this idea of spoiling your own chord structure, but I'm pretty sure that Giri is very well aware of the positional concession, yet he's decided to go for it anyway. Another alternative could have been, for instance, bishop d3, a takes b3, a takes b3, rook a2, rook e1, with the idea of rook e2 neutralizing the position should give white a small edge in this position. But after b takes a4, you've got queen d7, queen d3, knight g6. Knight a4 could have been an option here, but that's much more of the way a computer would be playing chess, with e5, bishop takes an e5, queen h7, king f8, rook e1, which should give white some degree of compensation, but there's absolutely no ways any human player would allow a queen to infiltrate all the way down to h7. It's just asking for trouble. So in this position, knight g6 was played, followed by knight f5, and knight takes a4, and black recovers the pawn. White has no real attack on the king side, and the black is now simply standing better. You've got b takes a4, rook takes a4, and Giri has a lot of chances to play a3, for instance, and get rid of his a2 pawn, but he decided not to do that. Now you will have to live with that permanent weakness of the isolated pawn down on a2. And obviously, as soon as that isolated pawn falls, it leaves Svidler with the advantage of the queenside pawn chain, which includes his B and C pawns, which are connected and passed. Rook h1, knight e7, g5. An alternative for Giri to g5 might have been, say, for instance, knight h6 check, g takes h6, queen f3, bishop g7, bishop h6, knight g6, but there's no real attack within that position, so nothing really would be coming of it. So we've got g5, followed by h takes g5, knight e3, and the a2 pawn falls. So black has now won a second pawn, and what's more, as far as black's two extra pawns, is his two extra pawns are both passed pawns, and what's more, they are connected passed pawns. And while it's true that the H file is now open, but there's really no way that Giri can effectively make use of the open H file, with there not really being a way for him to be able to get his pieces, his strong hitting pieces, down onto the H file before Svidler gets those pawns down to queen and squares. So bishop d2, knight g6, knight f5. For instance, rook h2 could have been played with knight e5, rook bh1, g6, but with g6, effectively all of white's threats up the h file would have been averted. So knight f5 was played, followed by knight e5, queen e2, g6, knight h6, king g7, knight f5 check, king g8, knight h6, king g7, and Svidler makes a repetition of the position to reach the 40th move mark in order to be able to make the time control without causing himself the chance of maybe having a blunder due to the fact that he was pretty low on time heading into the time control. So without further ado, we got the knight f5 check and g takes f5, queen h5, knight g6, and what we have here is black is quite simply a piece and 2 pawns up. Black's king is perfectly safe in that position, and Svidler has played a consistent game, but it has to be agreed that Anish's play was definitely really off color. And so now what happens in this position is Svidler has made the time control without making any time trouble blunders, and come out at the time control with a piece and 2 pawns and 2 connected pass pawns at that up. And as a result, in this position, Giri resigned, and that left him with a major uphill task of trying to beat Svidler with the black pieces in the second game of the round 6 time. But unfortunately, Giri was not able to do that. Svidler was able to hold out the position with a draw in the second game, which then sends Giri packing home to India, and Svidler is through to the final. And it must be noted that both finalists at the FIDE World Cup qualify for the candidates tournament ahead of the next World Championship match. So by qualifying for the final, Svidler has booked his place in the candidates tournament already, irrespective of what comes out in the final. And that, my friends, is how the game was won. Please feel free to share this out amongst your chess friends. Post any comments, questions, criticisms that you may have. Post those down below. And give this video a thumbs up if you like this type of content. Thumbs down if not. That way I know what to be putting out in the future. And last but by no means least, if you're watching this within the YouTube window, down just below the chessboard screen over here is a big red subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button, that way you stay subscribed to my channel for all the new content that comes out on a day-to-day and week-to-week basis. And also you'll be receiving an email into your inbox every time a new episode of How the Game Was Won gets published. So, and with that, stay carved up for the win, stay safe out there. I'll see you next time.